So thank you for joining us. We are excited to have Sarah FMU with us from the Public Law Center. And I had heard about Sarah at another collaborative group that I participated in this last, going on 3 months now, and heard about the good work that Sarah was doing with Public Law Center. And then she and I chatted offline, and I asked if she would be willing to share what the Public Law Center is doing for the nonprofit community in Orange County. And so the timing was perfect because at the time she said things were kind of just percolating, and now it looks like there's a great program in place. So we're excited to hear. Robin will be sending out the link to today's call to the people on the call, and then to those people that have reached out to us that said they were unable to join, but we will have the link, and then we will share it in our end of the month publication, Leaders in the Field. So I just ask that you mute your audio so that we don't hear any background noise. And then Sarah will share, and then we'll open it up to questions and answers. And so without further ado, we have Sarah with, she's a directing attorney with Public Law Center, Community Organization Legal Assistance Project. And Sarah, we're happy to have you with us today. So thank you and welcome.
Thank you very much, Robin, and thank you for those of you who are here. Thank you for taking some time out of your afternoon. I'm seeing some familiar names, so feel like I'm with old friends. So thanks for inviting me to be here. Yes, so I am with the Public Law Center. So for those of you who don't know about PLC, I'll do a little introduction about what we do in general as a legal aid firm, and then talk to you about our specific project where we work with nonprofit organizations. So Public Law Center, we've been around for over 35 years now. Our mission, we are a nonprofit 501c3 ourselves. Our mission is to provide access to justice for the underserved community of Orange County. So our focus is on civil legal services. So we basically provide legal services in the fields of consumer law, family law, health law. We have a fairly robust immigration unit, which, as you can imagine, has been pretty busy the past few years. So anything in the civil side. So we don't handle criminal cases. We don't handle certain types of civil cases, such as personal injury matters. But outside of those exceptions, we're pretty much here to serve the residents of Orange County. So I'd recommend, as you are working with your own clients, if you find that they have legal issues and needs, definitely feel free to refer them on to Public Law Center. So a little bit about what we do for nonprofits. So in 2005, our executive director looked around and realized that there was no one providing legal services for nonprofit organizations. And at the same time, realizing that nonprofit organizations are serving the very same clients that we serve through our legal services. That is low income, traditionally underserved communities in Orange County. So the idea behind this Community Organizations Legal Assistance Project, which I direct, is to fill that need. Because our goal is to, just like Fieldstone Leadership Network, is to increase the capacity of our nonprofit community in NOC and the capacity of your individual organizations. So by going in and making sure that you're legally healthy as an organization, if there are legal needs that you have, making sure that you keep those precious resources for your beneficiaries and not to pay a private law firm. That's what we really are here to fill that need. So when we're not in this pandemic situation, our day-to-day types of cases we work with would be anything from helping an organization get started. So we work with a lot of founders who have a great idea on how they can serve the community and need help forming, getting structured, and getting their 501c3 status. So we're there to help with that process. And then we also work with existing groups, some of whom have been around Orange County for decades. Anything that can come up on the legal side. So we help with bylaws, we help with fundraising matters, tax issues, employment, basically anything that can come up in the lifetime of a nonprofit. So what has happened in the last 6 weeks now? I think we're heading into our 6th week, or maybe it's 7 weeks. Yeah, so as all of you know, the ground came out from under all of us, and all of a sudden the day-to-day legal issues, although they're still there, they might not be as predominant as some of the new issues that have come up. So we've identified really five major categories of legal matters that we've been hearing from our clients in this since everything shut down towards the end of March. Certainly, emergency funding and getting our hands on those funds so we can continue our operations has been major. So, although at the moment those funds have been depleted, hopefully there is movement for an additional phase to the CARES Act. So, once that happens, we're there to help our clients apply for those funds. But at the same time, for those organizations that were able to get the funds, the question that's coming up now is, how do we make sure that we're spending those so we can ensure that those loans are forgiven? Okay, so that's a major issue we're working with clients on at the moment. Also, employment and staffing. This has been a big issue. What do we do with our employees that have, they're either working remotely or they're not in a position to work remotely, and we've had to furlough, but we certainly want to bring that staff back. How will that look, and how will we deal with that? Also for nonprofits that are either you have mortgages on their property or they're renting. The questions have come up about leasing arrangements. What happens if the nonprofit is unable to pay rent for a month? How can that be negotiated with the landlord? Are there any legal protections that can give a nonprofit some breathing room in the meantime? And then we also see issues coming up in the contract area. So if you had entered into a contract prior to the pandemic hitting, so say, most of us as nonprofits, we at least have one big gala or dinner or a fundraising event per year. And for a lot of us, that hit right about now. The summer is a high time for nonprofit events. And because of the social distancing requirements, we just aren't able to do those anymore. So, what happens to those contracts that we've signed with venues and fundraisers and other third parties? So that's certainly been an issue we've been working with clients on. And then finally, and this is somewhat related, what about insurance? The insurance, working under your insurance policies, this is very critical on whether you can get any kind of, whether this coverage is going to help mitigate your losses, whether it's under contract or employment related. So working with an attorney who can help you go through those policies and see what kind of coverage is available to you either under your current policies or that might be available to you in the future. So those were the 5 broad categories that we were working with. Now that we are heading back to work, eventually the stay-at-home orders are being relaxed and the reopening is starting. I know some businesses have started going back this week, but we're going to see this gradual reopening. And with that, we also expect to see a number of other, related but newer legal issues coming up. So, as under the employment context, how will nonprofits, what legal steps will nonprofits need to take to make sure that their workplaces are safe? What kind of safeguards do you need to put into place to minimize liability if something does happen to an employee or an employee falls ill? And not only employees, also volunteers. Okay, so if you're, a lot of us as nonprofits, we rely heavily on our volunteers, and our volunteers are itching to come back. And I'm sure all of you have felt this from your the volunteer community. They want to help and do something. But at the same time, we do have a responsibility to make our spaces safe for those volunteers, and as well as our clients who are coming in and using our services. And then I mentioned insurance already, looking very carefully at what types of insurance coverages may be available to you now. I'll tell you, it's going to be very difficult to get pandemic insurance coverage at the moment, but what else can you work with? How can you work with your brokers? And then finally, it's probably a little too early for this, but I think nonprofits should, particularly executive directors and board members, should be starting the thought process of what have we learned from this experience? What policies did we not have in place that we wished we would have had in place, or what policies should we adopt going forward? So those are the kinds of things that we're really, as attorneys, we're there to help you navigate. So I thought I'd just break. I've been doing a monologue. Does anyone have any questions so far? I was going to tell you about an exciting project we're just starting, but I'll just break for a question.
No, I'm excited to hear about the project because I can imagine I wrote all kinds of notes. So if we did need help with the reopening and making sure that our when we get our leaders that come in for learning groups to make sure that they're safe, would your program address, like, would you be able to have somebody that could help us walk us through that process?
Great. Okay. Yes, and thank you, Robin, for setting that up. So so I'll give you a little bit about what we do at PLC, and specifically what I've been hearing on the ground from clients in the nonprofit field about what the specific legal issues are. So all great to hear, Sarah, but what do we do now? How do we access your services? So really two ways. We are here to serve nonprofits, and we have a traditional procedure where we have an application intake form that we will ask a client to fill out. And then we either handle the work in-house here at PLC, or we connect you with one of our pro bono attorneys who will usually be working in a law firm in Orange County. We also have folks who are in LA, and we even have a volunteer in Fresno right now who is wanting to work with our clients. So just like your volunteers, our volunteers want to help as well. So that is one method, and that's our traditional method. You just would send an email to me, and I can put that into the chat box before we leave today, my email address. And then we also, alternatively, we have a new project that we're just starting, specifically in response to the COVID-19 pandemic and all of the legal issues that have come up as a result of that. We realized that a lot of nonprofit organizations and small business owners have legal questions that could very well be answered in, say, a half an hour or an hour-long phone call or a Zoom consultation with a lawyer. It's not something that needs to be opened as a brand new case and doesn't involve weeks and weeks of research. So we've partnered with an organization up in San Francisco called Start Small, Think Big, and we are going to be launching a series of pro bono legal clinics, remote legal clinics for nonprofits and small businesses. So it's a clinic, but it's not a certain time and a certain space. What we're going to do is we're going to connect nonprofit organizations who have legal issues related to COVID-19 with a pro bono attorney who has, say, a couple of spare hours on a given week with a specialty in the area that the organization has a question about. So say, for example, you have a question about reopening for services, and you want to know how whether or not you need to redo your employment manual or update your employment manual to make that in effect for your employees. We would connect you with an employment lawyer who would be able just to bounce some ideas back and forth with you. So for that process, I do have a special application form that goes through our partner, Start Small, Think Big. That again, it will be in the link, Robin, that you will be sending out. So I would say, balance whether you think you have something that can be answered within a brief remote legal consultation with an attorney, or if it's something bigger that you would need ongoing legal services for.
Excellent. Can you tell us who is eligible?
Yes. So for our traditional services, we decide our eligibility based on your mission. So if your mission aligns with Public Law Center's mission, which is to serve the underserved in Orange County, then for most cases you will be eligible. Okay, so it's pretty broad. We generally do not look at the budget of the organization, although if it's an organization that has a significantly high budget, we may ask questions about why that nonprofit cannot afford legal services on their own. And then we generally do not serve purely religious nonprofits. Now we do work with churches and temples and mosques if they do have a social mission that's outside of just the religious purposes. So we've worked with churches that have had childcare facilities, or we've worked with mosques that have had food pantries. So we do have room there, but I would say, if you're not sure, I'm always happy to have a discussion with folks to see if, if somehow we can make this fit.
Right.
And then on the remote clinic, the special COVID-19 project that we're doing, I would say anyone can go ahead and apply through. It's an online application. If we're not able to help here at PLC, it's likely that our partner would be able to connect you with somebody else within the state.
Excellent. Okay, so questions from the group. Just, you could unmute if you wanted, or you could put it in the chat and I will ask. Come on, Laval, I know you're not shy.
That's really funny, Robin.
Hi, Laval.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
So I am on today because, not from 10C, but because I'm going to be taking on a CEO role, and I'm looking for, I just want to make sure that I'm staying connected. So I'm going to be the new CEO of South County Outreach.
Oh my gosh, that's
Great.
the best news.
Yeah, so super excited. Sad to be leaving the work that I'm doing here with multiple nonprofits, Sarah, similar to what you all are all doing. But what advice would you give to a new CEO coming into a changed environment? I think things that we should be thinking about, things that we should be really kind of helping our boards think through and help us with. What if you were to give me your top 2 or 3 things that a new, and when I say new into the CEO role, or new, in the last couple of years, just kind of new into this space, and now this has happened?
Right, that's a great question, and I think it's relevant not just to new CEOs and new EDs, but also existing folks, because we're coming into a very different, our organizations are going to look very different than they did 2 months ago. So I would say, if I was in your position, I'd want to see every policy that the board has adopted. Okay, so making sure that you have a look at the bylaws, as well as every other policy that they have a good understanding of the employment handbook or manual. If there is not one, making sure that there is something put in place for the staff. Likewise, the volunteer policies. I'd also want to see the insurance policies that the organization has, so there's a good understanding of exactly what's covered and what's not covered. What other things? Having a good understanding of the programs, and the willingness of the board and the staff, and to change and to adapt to the new regulations and the new normal that we're going into.
Thanks, Sue. Appreciate that, Sarah.
Sure.
Hi, Debbie. We're just, nice to see you on here. We're just asking Sarah particular questions. I know you missed part of it, but if you have any burning questions.
Oh, thank you. No, I'm sorry I was late. I had a conflict and able to jump in. So
Good.
I'll just lurk.
Okay, good. Lurk away.
Thanks.
No, this is great. I'm really excited to hear about the legal clinics. I think that those sound really interesting. So I'm hoping that people on this call feel that they would be eligible, so they reach out to you first, and then you would send them the application.
Well, if it's a COVID-19, so if it's a specific coronavirus related issue, for example, you want, you really need some help understanding how you should be spending those PPP funds and making sure that that loan is going to be forgiven. You would fill out the application directly online and submit it to our partner organization. But if you have, I'd welcome any of you to reach out to me directly if you're not sure if you are, you should be going that route or you should be using our traditional route. I know a couple of organizations have already done that, and I'm happy to point you in the right direction. And also understand that, you might have a mix of questions. You might have some issues that certainly are related to the recovery funds, but at the same time, you have questions about what's going to happen after the pandemic has, done, and we're going on to the next steps. So you might be filling out 2 separate applications, but it's nothing too onerous.
Can you shed any light on the forgiveness piece of the PPP?
Sure. So hopefully all of your organizations had been able to, with staff, had been able to apply, and you've received the funds. I know a lot of organizations had trouble, especially the smaller groups. So I hope that hasn't happened to anyone here. So as far as the forgiveness, the funds need to be used, at least 75% of the funds, for payroll purposes. Okay, so that you have to make sure that that 75% of those funds are used for payroll. 25% can be used for non-payroll expenses such as mortgage, rent, debt reduction, okay, program expenses, but really the bulk needs to go to staff payments. What's important, and there's some quite complex formulas regarding what that payroll, how that's forgiven. So basically, once you receive the funds, an 8-week period starts. Okay, so you'll need to be able to show that your staff, the numbers of staff, haven't been reduced at the end of that by a certain point after that 8 weeks is over. So so this is certainly a question. It's going to be very fact specific to each loan and each organization, and when they receive the funds, and also where you started the calculation of your employees from. Okay, there are 2 options from counting your employees. It could have been from your 2019 figures or the beginning of 2020. So so I would say if there are questions about that, I would recommend that you utilize our clinic.
So a question that I was asked by somebody is, the clock starts ticking and you based it on, your last year calculations, but because you furloughed or laid off some people, they're making more on unemployment and the additional $600 a week, they're not coming back. So what happens to do they look at the dollar amount, or do they look at the head count? Or does the CEO have that opportunity then to just restructure and say, well, hey, we did have 8 people and maybe our payroll was $20,000 a month. Well, now I think we can make do with 3. Like, how are they going to get punished? And then are they going to have to then pay that back? Like, how does that work?
Right. So we, it wasn't certain in the CARES Act, and there has been guidance that's been given by the SBA and Treasury on this issue. And if an organization, if an employee has been furloughed and the organization offers the job back, so offers to rehire, and that employee turns that offer down, okay, that employee will not be counted. Okay. Now the question also is also,
as long as you document it.
yes, exactly. So all of this, everything under PPP is critical. Thank you, Laval, about documentation. So you want to make a written offer. You want to make sure that the decline is in writing. Now the question has come up: what happens if an employee resigns during this time? Okay, is not furloughed, and that we do not have guidance on yet. So just to show how this is very uncertain, and very fact specific, this whole concept of the loan forgiveness and the use. But certainly, yeah, documentation is absolutely critical.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Hi, Brenda. Do you have a question? I didn't know if you unmuted yourself, Brenda, to ask a question. Don't feel pressured.
No, I don't know why it did that.
Okay,
I think
that's fine.
for some reason it just did that.
We do have a question, Sarah. I don't know if you see it in the chat. Do you know if Hazard Hero pay bonuses for staff will be a forgivable payroll expense?
Ooh, you know, I would imagine so. If this isn't, I assume this will not bring the employee up over 100,000. Okay, because that always has to be a consideration. You know, I'd have to look at that. I'm not absolutely sure. I would say yes, but before I gave a definite answer, I'd want to do a little bit of research into that.
Robin, you're muted.
And this is Claire.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is a great question. You know, again, funnel, you know, proponent for my clinic. This would be a great question to ask of one of our volunteers if you were to take part in our brief consultation clinic.
What would happen if you don't spend it all? Let's say you only spend 50% of it. Can you repay the 25% and still get the 50%? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so you can. I mean, that is and that is an approach that some businesses and nonprofits have taken. There is a certain, you know, there's a danger to that. That's why, you know, many advisors are recommending that you actually set up a separate bank account for your PPP funds.
Interesting.
But that's certainly an option.
If
Go ahead, Robin.
when you fill out that loan application and you had more employees in 1990, but in 2020 you have less, but the last 12 months they make you do it based on the last 12 months. Will they figure out that, well, yeah, but in 2020 you only have this much?
Well, you do have the option of January through at the beginning. I'm not sure which month it goes through, but the beginning part of 2020. So there is that option as well.
Okay. Good to know.
Okay. Any other questions before we let Sarah go? Sarah, thank you for the work that you're doing. This is just so helpful. I can imagine once we get the word out, everybody's going to be flooding your inbox.
That's fine. And I'm just going to type my email address here into the chat box. I know you're going to send it out, Robin, but just in case, make sure that everyone has that there.
So do you anticipate that will this go for a year? Like, have they talked about how long this program will last?
You know, we're anticipating at minimum 3 months, more likely 6 months. But you know, if we find that it's something that works well with our clients, you know, I think this is how all of us are reacting. You know, trying to see whatever good we can come out of the pandemic. You know, how can we utilize these, you know, virtual? We've all become Zoom proficient. How can we keep this going even after we all are back in the office? You know, just to make things easier for our clients and reach. So I'd say, you know, if this is a good model, I could see us carrying it on indefinitely.
That's great. We have quarterly, when we're allowed to meet again, we have quarterly gatherings. They're called Fieldstone4U, and we meet offsite, and we have, you know, wine and appetizers and just an opportunity for all of our leaders to come together. And we get about 40 people from 40 different organizations that come. I would love to have you come to one of those and just, you know, put a name to a face and give you the opportunity to kind of summarize what's going on and what services you have and that you could provide to our nonprofit leaders. I know they would love to hear from you.
Well, thank you. I would be honored to do that.
Yeah, we would love that. Okay, well, if that's it. Goodbye, everybody. And Robin will send out the link. And again, Sarah, thank you for your time.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Really quick, Monica. Oh, never mind.
Monica is still on.
Is she still on?
Yeah.
What's her last name? Because I don't have a last name on that.
Monica, can you type in your last name and then Robin will be sure to send you the link. If she hears me. Okay.
I
Thanks,
do. I'm
everybody.
sorry. I will definitely do that. It's Cardena, Cardena.
Okay, I don't have your email